I remember the day the sky wept with me. My tears mingled with the rain as if it sought to wash away the betrayal that clung to my skin like a stubborn shadow. 3 years of whispered promises and shared dreams evaporated in an instant when he, Hiroshi, chose my sister, Aki, over me. The air was heavy with the scent of wet earth and betrayal, each drop of rain echoing the silent scream trapped within my chest. I stood alone in the rain-soaked garden, the memories playing a cruel film behind my eyes. I had given Hiroshi my heart, wrapped it in trust, and handed it over without reservation. Now, it lay shattered at my feet, indistinguishable from the raindrops that fell with relentless despair. Yet, amidst the chaos of my heart, there was a part of me that refused to drown. Aki's laughter echoed through the house, a reminder of the bond we once shared, a bond now frayed and unraveling. She had been my confidant, my mirror in a world that often felt too vast. I wanted to blame her, to brand her a thief of love, but deep down, I knew it was Hiroshi who had betrayed us both. His promises, once a symphony, now felt like a discordant melody that mocked the very notion of love. Days turned into weeks, and each morning I woke to find the sun had risen despite my sorrow. I learned to smile through the pain, to wear my grief like a second skin, visible yet untouchable. It was during one of these mornings, as the sun peeked timidly through the clouds, that I met Takeshi. He was sitting on a bench in the park, sketchbook in hand, capturing the world with strokes of charcoal. There was something comforting about the way he saw beauty in the mundane, and for the first time in months, I felt drawn to something other than my own misery. Our eyes met, and a silent understanding passed between us, a recognition of shared solitude. Takeshi's presence in my life was like a gentle balm, soothing the wounds that Hiroshi's betrayal had left behind. We spent hours wandering the city, finding solace in each other's silence and joy in whispered conversations that filled the spaces between us. He never asked about my past, and I never offered. It was as if we both understood that some stories are better left unspoken. As the leaves turned from green to gold, I found myself laughing again, a sound I thought I'd lost forever. Takeshi's laughter was a melody that intertwined with mine, creating a harmony that resonated deep within my soul. He was unlike Hiroshi in every way. Where Hiroshi was a tempest, Takeshi was the calm after the storm. With him, I felt seen, cherished in a way I hadn't known was possible. Yet, the shadow of betrayal lingered, a specter that refused to be ignored. It was during one of our evening walks that Takeshi stopped suddenly, his eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that took my breath away. "There's something you should know," he said, his voice raw with an emotion I couldn't quite decipher. His confession unraveled a truth I had never anticipated. Takeshi was Aki's childhood friend. He had known about Hiroshi's betrayal before I did, and had waited, biding his time to reveal the truth. My heart clenched, a familiar ache spreading through my chest. Had I been living another lie? But Takeshi's gaze, earnest and unwavering, held no deception. "I wanted to tell you," he continued, "but I needed you to see me, not as Aki's friend, but as me. I wanted to be something more than a bearer of bad news." In that moment, I realized that I had been so consumed by my own pain that I hadn't seen the gift Takeshi had offered, a chance to reclaim my independence, to redefine my narrative. Hiroshi and Aki were chapters of my past, but Takeshi was the promise of a new beginning. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my past lift as I made my decision. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice steady and sure. "Thank you for trusting me with the truth." Together, we stood beneath the starlit sky, a silent promise weaving between us like a thread of light. I understood now that love was not a chain, but a choice, and in choosing Takeshi, I was choosing myself. As the rain began to fall once more, I smiled, tears mingling with raindrops. These tears were not of sorrow, but of release, a cleansing of my past to make way for whatever lay ahead. I was no longer a prisoner of betrayal, but a woman reborn, ready to embrace the unexpected twists of life with an open heart. And in that moment, I knew I had found something even better than what I had lost. The rain drummed softly against the glass, a gentle reminder of the tears that fell silently in my heart. 3 years, a span of time that felt infinite and yet fleeting, had dissolved into a memory as fragile as a paper crane. Those years we shared were now folded neatly away, tucked into the recesses of my past, leaving only a bitter aftertaste of betrayal. I stood there, gripping the edges of the vanity, my knuckles white under the harsh light of reality. The reflection staring back at me in the mirror was one I barely recognized. Her eyes, once filled with dreams and laughter, were now pools of stormy resentment. He had promised me forever, and yet it was not my hand he held on that sunlit aisle, but hers, my sister's. The betrayal cut deeper than any blade, severing ties of sisterhood and trust. I could still hear the echoes of their vows, the way his voice trembled with sincerity as he pledged his life to her. Promises that once belonged to me now slipped through my fingers like sand, leaving me to question every whispered word and stolen moment we shared. The memories of our time together played like a haunting melody, refusing to fade into silence. In the solitude of my room, the walls closed in, suffocating me with the weight of what once was. I needed to escape, to break free from the chains of my past. It was then that I vowed to reclaim my heart, to rise from the ashes of betrayal not as a victim, but as the architect of my own destiny. It was during the wanderings of my heart, amidst the ruins of my trust, that I met him. His presence was like a sudden gust of autumn wind, crisp and unexpected, sweeping through the broken pieces of my world. He carried an aura of quiet strength, his eyes holding secrets deeper than any ocean. In them, I saw not just a refuge, but a possibility, a chance to rewrite my story. Our first encounter was a symphony of chance and fate. I had stumbled into that cafe, seeking solace in the anonymity of a crowded room. He was there, seated by the window, lost in a book that seemed to hold the universe between its pages. Our eyes met, and in that moment, something shifted. An unspoken understanding passed between us, a silent promise of companionship. His name was Kaito, and he was everything I never knew I needed. With him, conversations flowed like a river, unhurried and profound. He listened, truly listened, to the words I dared not speak aloud, and in his presence, I found the courage to lay my scars bare. Slowly, gently, he unraveled the bitterness coiled around my heart, replacing it with warmth and light. But as my heart began to heal, shadows from the past crept in, whispering doubts and fears. Was I merely seeking solace in his arms, a temporary balm for wounds still raw? Or was this something more, something real and enduring? Memories of my sister and him, their laughter echoing in the hallways of my mind, threatened to unravel the fragile peace I had found. One evening, as we walked beneath a canopy of stars, Kaito paused, turning to face me. The sincerity in his eyes held me captive. "I know your heart has been through storms," he said softly, his voice a gentle caress. "But I am not him. I will not make promises I cannot keep. Instead, I offer you a choice, a journey we can take together, wherever it leads." His words were a lifeline, pulling me from the abyss of uncertainty. In that moment, I realized that love was not a chain, but a choice, a series of promises made and kept, not out of obligation, but out of desire. Kaito was not a replacement nor a shadow of what once was. He was my future, a canvas on which I could paint anew. With each passing day, I grew stronger, my independence blooming like the wildflowers on a forgotten trail. It was a newfound freedom, a liberation from the past that had held me captive. I learned to forgive, not just him and my sister, but myself as well, to let go of the bitterness that had poisoned my heart and to embrace the possibility of happiness once more. In a twist of fate, my sister reached out to me, seeking reconciliation. Her voice trembled with regret, her words an olive branch extended across the chasm of our estrangement. As she spoke, the memories of our childhood, of shared secrets and laughter, flickered like a candle in the dark. It was then I realized that forgiveness was not a gift I gave to her, but a liberation I granted myself. With Kaito by my side, I faced her, my heart steady and unburdened. We were not the same people we once were, but perhaps in time we could find our way back to each other, not as sisters defined by betrayal, but as individuals who had grown and changed. As I stood there, With Kaito's hand in mine, I knew that life was a series of choices and promises. Some were broken, others kept, but all led me to this moment of clarity. The rain had ceased, leaving behind a world washed clean and new. And in the quiet aftermath, I found peace, not in forgetting the past, but in forging a future undefined by it. The journey was mine to take, and with Kaito, I would walk it with hope in my heart and love as my guide. The rain outside mirrored the tears I refused to shed, a steady rhythm against the window pane that seemed to echo the tumult within my heart. It was the kind of rain that felt endless, as if the heavens themselves wept for the tragedy of love turned sour. My fingers traced the cool glass, each droplet a memory that slipped away, leaving streaks of emptiness behind. 3 years. 3 years of tender whispers and shared dreams, of soft promises exchanged beneath the cherry blossoms that heralded each spring. Yet, like petals caught in a gust of wind, those dreams scattered the day I received the invitation. An elegant card, her name entwined with his in calligraphy as beautiful as it was cruel. My sister, my blood, my betrayal. I remember the moment I confronted him, my voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and desperation. "How could you?" I asked, the words like shards of glass in my throat. He stood there, eyes cast downward, unable to meet the storm in my gaze. The silence between us grew, a chasm filled with all that was left unsaid. "It just happened," he finally whispered, as if that could absolve him of the unforgivable. As if love could be reduced to a mere accident of fate. The weight of his betrayal settled into my chest, a cold stone where my heart had once beat with warmth and trust. I turned away, determined not to let him see me break. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. In the labyrinth of my despair, I found a spark of something unexpected: independence. A quiet, fierce determination that whispered promises of its own. I threw myself into work, losing myself in the solace of numbers and data, a world where everything made sense, where there was no room for betrayal. It was there, in the sterile light of the office, that I met him. The unassuming new colleague who, with a shy smile and kind eyes, began to piece together the fragments of my shattered heart. His name was Kenji. Simple, unremarkable at first glance, but there was a depth to him that drew me in. He listened without judgment, his presence a balm to my wounded spirit. We spoke of everything and nothing, our conversations weaving a tapestry of understanding and unspoken connection. Yet, as I began to heal, a shadow lingered, a whisper of doubt that taunted me in the quiet hours of the night. Was it possible to trust again? To open my heart knowing the risk of it being torn asunder once more? I grappled with my fears as the date of my sister's wedding loomed closer, a specter that haunted my every step. The invitation lay untouched on my dresser, an accusation in cream and gold. It was Kenji who finally broke through my walls. "You should go," he said, his voice gentle yet firm. "Not for them, but for you, to find closure, to lay the past to rest." And so, on the day of the wedding, I found myself standing outside the venue, the echo of church bells in the distance. The sky was a brilliant blue, a stark contrast to the storm that raged within me. I hesitated, memories of childhood laughter and shared secrets warring with the bitter taste of betrayal. I stepped inside, bracing myself for the onslaught of emotions. The ceremony was beautiful, a fairy tale unfolding in soft hues and whispered vows. My sister looked radiant, her happiness a knife that twisted in my gut. And there he was, the man who had once been my world, now pledging his life to another. As they exchanged rings, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. The tears that threatened to fall were not for what was lost, but for what was found. A sense of liberation, of stepping out of the shadows and into the light of my own path. Later, as I stood in the garden, the scent of blooming roses heavy in the air, my sister approached me. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, a mixture of joy and regret. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said, her voice a fragile thread of sincerity. "I know," I replied, the words surprising us both. And in that moment, I meant it. The past was a tapestry of memories, some painful, others sweet, but all a part of the journey that had led me here. Kenji joined us, his presence a quiet strength at my side. As he took my hand, I realized that love was not about possession or promises, but about freedom and choice. And in choosing to let go, I had found something greater than revenge or resentment. I had found myself. The rain had stopped, the clouds parting to reveal a sky painted with the colors of a new dawn. I looked at Kenji, and in his eyes, I saw the promise of a future unburdened by the past. And as I walked away from the remnants of what once was, I knew that I was writing the story of my own life, one chapter at a time. The evening sky blushed with hues of purple and orange as I stood by the window, fingers tracing the cold glass, as though it held the answers to my heart's unwritten questions. Beyond the horizon, the sun dipped lower, dragging with it the pieces of my past I so desperately tried to forget, yet stubbornly clung to. 3 years, 3 long years of laughter, shared dreams, and whispered promises that had tied my heart to his. Naoki was everything I thought I wanted. He was the melody to my life's song, the comforting presence in my solitude. But now, only echoes of his laughter haunted me, a chilling reminder of the betrayal that shattered my world. I still remember the day like an unending nightmare, a reel of memories twisted in surreal cruelty. The sun was high in the sky, casting a harsh light on the truth I discovered. Naoki, standing beside my sister Hana, their hands entwined, a silent declaration of the vows they had taken. "Why?" I had asked, my voice barely a whisper, tears threatening to spill over as I struggled to hold myself together. Naoki's eyes, once so familiar, were now foreign, tinted with guilt, yet resolute. "I'm sorry, Aiko," he said, words heavy with finality. "I never meant for it to happen like this, but I love her." I loved her too, my sister, my confidant. The betrayal was a dagger with 2 edges, cutting me from both sides. A part of me wanted to hate her, to scream and tear the world apart, but another part remembered our childhood promises, our dreams woven together beneath the cherry blossom trees. I turned away, letting the tears fall like rain, washing away the last remnants of what could have been. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. I rebuilt my life piece by piece, each fragment a testament to my resilience, my newfound independence. I found solace in the quiet moments, in the beauty of small things, the rustling leaves, the laughter of strangers, the warmth of a cup of tea. Yet the shadow of the past lingered, an uninvited guest in the corners of my heart. And then, as if the universe decided to play a cruel trick on me, he appeared, Kaito. His presence was like a storm, sudden and fierce, disrupting the fragile equilibrium I had built. He was nothing like Naoki. Where Naoki was gentle and predictable, Kaito was wild and unpredictable, a force of nature that swept through my life with relentless energy. Our first meeting was an accident, a collision of fate. I had been rushing through the crowded streets, lost in thought, when I stumbled into him, nearly knocking us both to the ground. His eyes met mine, a deep, piercing gaze that seemed to see right through me. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice a rich, soothing melody that resonated within me. I nodded, words failing me as I tried to compose myself. There was something about him, a magnetic pull that drew me in, despite the walls I had built around my heart. Kaito became an unexpected presence in my life, a spark of light in the lingering shadows. He was bold, challenging me in ways I hadn't anticipated, urging me to step beyond the boundaries I had imposed on myself. With him, I laughed again, a genuine, uninhibited laughter that I thought I had lost forever. Yet, trust was a fragile thing, a delicate thread I was hesitant to grasp. Memories of Naoki's betrayal lingered like ghosts, whispering doubts in the quiet moments. I was wary, guarding my heart with a ferocity born of past wounds. Kaito, perceptive as always, sensed my hesitation. One evening, as we sat beneath the stars, he turned to me, his expression serious yet tender. "Aiko, I know you've been hurt before," he said, his voice a gentle caress. "But I'm not him. I'm not here to hurt you." His words were a balm to my soul, a promise I desperately wanted to believe. But promises had been broken before, leaving scars I couldn't erase. I looked at him, my heart a tumultuous sea of fear and hope. "How can I be sure?" I whispered, the question a plea for reassurance. Cato smiled, a soft, understanding smile that reached his eyes. "You can't," he replied, honesty in every word. "But sometimes you have to take a leap of faith." As I sat there, bathed in the moonlight, I realized something profound. I had been holding on to the past, letting it define me, imprison me. But perhaps it was time to let go, to embrace the uncertainty of the future. Cato was right. Life was about taking risks, about trusting despite the fear. With a newfound resolve, I took his hand, the warmth of his touch grounding me. It was a small gesture, but it felt monumental, a step towards healing, towards independence. As I looked into Caito's eyes, I saw not just a potential love, but a reflection of my own strength, my ability to rise from the ashes of betrayal. In that moment, I made a silent promise to myself, to live boldly, to love fiercely, and to never let the shadows of the past dim the light of my future. And as the stars shimmered above, I knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where I was the author of my own story, free from the chains of yesterday, ready to embrace whatever tomorrow would bring. The rain fell incessantly that night, each drop a tiny percussion on my window, mimicking the tears I refused to shed. My room was a dim sanctuary, cloaked in shadows, the kind that clung to corners and whispered forgotten secrets. It was here I found solace, alone with my thoughts and the distant echoes of laughter from downstairs. A celebration, they said. A union of souls, they declared. Yet, for me, it was the shattering of promises once whispered in the sanctuary of moonlit nights. 3 years we had woven our lives together, Hero and I. 3 years of promises spun like gossamer threads, delicate yet resilient, or so I believed. We spoke in the language of forever, our words interlaced with dreams and possibilities. But then, in the blink of an eye, those threads unraveled, revealing a truth as stark as the winter's chill. I remember the moment I first realized the betrayal, the way the world seemed to tilt, and the ground beneath my feet dissolved into nothingness. It was at a family gathering, of all places, where masks of civility hid the fissures beneath. My sister, Ayani, with her radiant smile and golden laughter, was the sun to my shadow. I watched, disbelieving, as Hero took her hand, the same hand that had once cradled my own. Their fingers intertwined, a tapestry of deceit woven with expert precision. In the silence of that moment, I heard the echo of a promise, a vow that had slipped from his lips, now empty and hollow. "I will always choose you," he had said, his voice a balm to my insecurities. But here he was, choosing another, his heart a traitor to its own words. I retreated into myself, a chrysalis of pain and betrayal, the world a blur of muted colors and muffled sounds. Days passed, indistinguishable one from another, until the whispers of revenge began to stir within me. It was not an angry scream, but a quiet resolve, a promise to myself that I would rise from the ashes they had left behind. It was then that I met him, in the most unexpected of places, a bookstore tucked away in a forgotten alley, a sanctuary of stories and silent conversations. I was browsing through the aisles, seeking solace in fictional worlds, when I felt his presence beside me. He was a stranger, yet there was an odd familiarity in the way his eyes met mine, a recognition of shared solitude. "Caito," he introduced himself, his voice a gentle melody that cut through the cacophony of my mind. He spoke of books and dreams, of worlds beyond our own, and I found my heart responding in kind, hesitant, yet hopeful. In his presence, the shadows that had clung to me began to recede, replaced by a warmth that I had long forgotten. As we talked, I discovered layers of him that mirrored my own, a past marred by betrayal, a heart once shattered, now mending. We were kindred spirits, Caito and I, 2 souls adrift in a sea of broken promises, yet anchored by a newfound understanding. Our connection grew, unfurling like a blossom in the spring, vibrant and unexpected. With each passing day, the memories of Hero and Ayani faded, replaced by moments of laughter and whispers of dreams shared under starlit skies. Caito was not a refuge, but a revelation, a reminder that love, true and untainted, could exist beyond the scars of betrayal. It was then that I learned of the truth, a twist that unraveled the very fabric of my understanding. Ayaan came to me, her eyes brimming with unshed tears, her voice trembling with the weight of confession. Hero, she revealed, had never truly loved her, bound instead by a promise to our dying father, a promise to take care of her, to shield her from a world that had been unkind. The revelation struck me like a tempest, a maelstrom of emotions tearing through my resolve. Yet, as the storm settled, I found clarity amidst the chaos. Hero had been a pawn in a game of familial duty, his heart caught in a vice of obligation and guilt. And yet, I could not absolve him, for love should never be a chain, nor a promise born of fear. With this new understanding, I sought Hero out, not for revenge, but closure. We met in a park, a place once filled with memories now tinged with bittersweet nostalgia. He looked older, wearier, the weight of choices etched into the lines of his face. "I never meant to hurt you," he whispered, his voice a ghost of the past. But the words, once capable of piercing my heart, now fell away, leaving in their wake a sense of peace, of finality. "I forgive you," I replied, not for his sake, but for my own. It was a release, a letting go of the chains that had bound me to a past filled with shadows. As I walked away, I felt the first rays of independence dawn within me. The promises I had once clung to were now replaced by new ones, whispered between Kaido and me. Promises of love, of dreams woven together, untainted by the scars of yesterday. In the end, I found not just love, but a better version of myself. A woman who had faced betrayal, embraced revenge, and emerged with a heart more resilient than before. And as I took Kaido's hand, I knew that this time, the promises we made would be etched not in words, but in the unspoken language of our shared journey. The day the invitation arrived, I remember the sound of it falling onto the wooden floor, a sharp, solitary echo in the otherwise silent room. It was a sound that seemed to reverberate through the hollow chambers of my heart, a sound that mocked the years I'd spent weaving dreams around a future that now lay shattered in pieces on that very floor. His name was there, inked in elegant calligraphy, entwined with hers. My sister, my own blood. For 3 years, he had been the center of my universe, a gravitational force pulling at my every thought, my every heartbeat. His promises had been whispers that echoed in the corridors of my mind, sweet echoes of a love that I believed was unbreakable. Memories of soft laughter and gentle caresses were now ghosts haunting the recesses of my soul. I wanted to scream, to cry, but the tears refused to come. They were stubborn, much like the promises he had made. Instead, I found myself frozen, staring at the invitation as though it were a venomous creature poised to strike. The betrayal felt like a blade twisting deep within, yet I knew I had to face it, to confront the echoes of what had been and what could never be. The day of the wedding dawned bright and clear, the sky a traitorous blue that mocked my inner storm. As I stood in front of the mirror, the reflection staring back was a stranger. The dress I wore was a facade, a shield against the whispers and the pitying glances that would no doubt follow me like shadows. Entering the venue was like stepping into a different world, one filled with laughter and joy, the air heavy with the scent of fresh blooms and the promise of new beginnings. I saw him, standing at the altar, his face a mask of happiness, and beside him, my sister, radiant in her white gown, her eyes shining with a love I had once thought was mine. As the ceremony unfolded, I felt as though I was watching a scene from someone else's life. The vows they exchanged were daggers, each word a reminder of the promises he had made to me, promises now broken, cast aside like forgotten dreams. And then, something unexpected happened. As their lips met, sealing their union, I felt a peculiar sensation, a weight lifting, a release. The tears that had stubbornly refused to fall now threatened to spill over, but they were not tears of sorrow. No, they were tears of liberation, of a newfound clarity. In that moment, I realized I was free. In the days that followed, I found solace in solitude. The memories lingered, yes, but they no longer held power over me. I began to explore the world with new eyes, to rediscover the parts of myself I had lost in the shadows of a love that was never truly mine. It was during one of these explorations that I met him. He was a stranger, a chance encounter in a crowded cafe. Yet, as our eyes met, there was a spark, a recognition that transcended words. His presence was a balm to my wounded soul, his laughter a melody that resonated with the echoes of my own. He was different, yet somehow familiar, and in his gaze, I saw the promise of a future not bound by the chains of betrayal. As our relationship blossomed, I found myself opening up in ways I hadn't thought possible. With him, there were no ghosts, no echoes of broken promises. He taught me the beauty of the present, of finding joy in the simplest of moments. And in doing so, he helped me find myself. But life, as I had learned, is not without its twists. One evening, as we sat beneath a canopy of stars, he told me his story. He spoke of a love he had lost, a betrayal that mirrored my own. His words were raw, filled with a pain I knew all too well. Yet, his story held a twist, a revelation that left me breathless. His lost love, the woman who had betrayed him, was none other than my sister. The realization hit me like a tidal wave, a convergence of destinies that seemed too surreal to fathom. Yet, as we sat there, wrapped in each other's arms, I understood that this twist of fate, this double twist, was not a curse but a blessing. It was as if the universe had conspired to bring us together, two souls bound by a shared pain, now united in a love that was real and true and ours alone. And so, as we gazed up at the stars, I made a silent promise to myself. I would cherish this love, nurture it, and hold it close, for it was a love born from the ashes of betrayal, a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the indomitable power of the heart. As the tears finally fell, they were no longer symbols of sorrow or betrayal, but of hope, of redemption, and of the beautiful, unexpected journey that had led me to my true self. The rain drummed softly against the windowpane, a melancholic symphony that played in harmony with the storm inside my heart. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the invitation that lay on the floor, its gold-embossed letters glistening mockingly in the dim light. Together with their families, it read, Kaori and Ren request the honor of your presence. A tear slipped silently down my cheek, leaving a glistening trail, a testament to promises broken and dreams shattered. 3 years. 3 years of whispered secrets and tender touches, of laughter that echoed in the corridors of my heart, now reduced to a mere footnote in his story. I remember the day he told me, his voice a fragile thread in the stillness of the room. I love her, Yuna. I can't explain it, but it feels right. Betrayal wrapped itself around me like an icy shroud, squeezing the breath from my lungs. My sister, Kaori, her smile as radiant as the sun, had unknowingly stolen my world. I had watched them exchange vows beneath an arch of cherry blossoms, their petals swirling in the breeze like fragments of a forgotten dream. My heart clenched as I stood there, a ghost in the backdrop of their new beginning. The tears I shed that day were not just for the love I had lost, but for the promises that had evaporated into thin air. But life, in its unpredictable cruelty, has a way of stitching wounds with threads of irony. It was at their wedding, amidst the clinking of glasses and the murmur of well-wishers, that I met him. Haruto. His eyes were a tempest, a storm that mirrored my own turmoil. He approached me with a quiet confidence, a gentle smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "You look like you could use a friend," he had said, his voice a balm to my shattered soul. Our conversations, at first hesitant, soon became the anchor I desperately needed. Haruto had a way of seeing through the facade I wore, his gaze piercing yet tender. We spent countless nights beneath the stars, our words weaving a tapestry of shared dreams and unspoken fears. In his presence, I found a semblance of peace, a flicker of hope amidst the ashes of my past. It was during one of those star-kissed nights that he took my hand, his touch sending a shiver down my spine. "Yuna," he murmured, his voice a gentle caress. "The world may have taken something precious from you, but it also gave you the strength to find something even more profound." His words were a promise, a silent vow etched into the fabric of my being. As the months passed, my heart, once a barren wasteland, began to bloom anew. Haruto's love was a gentle rain, nurturing the seeds of independence and resilience within me. I learned to stand on my own, to embrace the woman I was becoming, a woman forged in the fires of betrayal and tempered by the winds of change. Yet, life, with its penchant for irony, had one more twist in store. On the eve of my sister's first anniversary, Kaori came to me, her eyes shadowed by a sorrow I hadn't seen before. "Ren is leaving," she confessed, her voice a brittle whisper. "He says he never stopped loving you." The revelation was a thunderclap reverberating through the corridors of my mind. Memories surged forth, a torrent of laughter and tears, of promises whispered in the dark. But as I gazed into my sister's tear-streaked face, I realized that the past no longer held power over me. The love I had once cherished was now a ghost, a relic of a time that had shaped me but no longer defined me. I took Kaori's hands in mine, the warmth of our shared blood coursing between us. "Let him go," I whispered, offering her the strength I had found within myself. "Find your own path, your own love." Haruto stood beside me that night, his presence a steadfast beacon in the storm. Together, we watched as the world turned, as the past was laid to rest beneath the stars that bore witness to our journey. In his arms, I found not just love, but freedom, the freedom to forge my own destiny, to write my own story. As the rain continued to fall, I closed my eyes, letting the tears flow freely. They were no longer a symbol of loss, but of release, a cleansing baptism that washed away the remnants of the past. In their place, I felt the stirrings of something new, a promise of endless possibilities. And so, with Haruto by my side, I stepped into the future, my heart a tapestry of scarred beauty, woven with threads of love, betrayal, and newfound independence. Time, that relentless river, it never stops, does it? Its current swept me away from innocence into a more tumultuous sea. For 3 years, I had believed in the gentle whispers of love, the promises that wrapped around my heart like a serene fog. Yet, there I stood, on the precipice of disbelief, watching him smile beside her, my sister, my once closest confidant, draped in white, as if purity could mask betrayal. The ceremony was a blur, a collage of forced smiles and hollow words. I was a ghost, tethered to the world by the weight of my own tears. They fell silently, a drizzle of memories cascading down my cheeks. Each drop was a moment, a fragment of what once seemed unbreakable. His laughter in the rain, our whispered dreams under a canopy of stars, the warmth of his hand in mine. Betrayal was a bitter taste, one that lingered far too long, a shadow that refused to lift. Yet, in the depths of that despair, a spark ignited. A flare of defiance, a promise to myself that I wouldn't let the waves of their treachery drown me. Independence was a new kind of love, a fierce, untamed force that stirred within me, urging me to rise above their deceit. I left the wedding without a word, the echoes of celebratory cheer haunting my steps. The world outside was a contrast of vibrant life and my own colorless turmoil. Yet, even in the chaos, there was beauty. The sky was a canvas of twilight hues, the stars peeking through like secrets waiting to be discovered. It was at the edge of this new beginning that I met him. Kai, a name like the sea, an aura that promised adventure. Our meeting was unexpected, a collision of fates at a quiet cafe on a rainy afternoon. I was lost in thought, tracing patterns in the condensation on my cup, when he approached with a smile that spoke of understanding and a hint of mischief. His presence was a balm, a gentle reminder that life held more than pain. We talked for hours, the world outside the window fading into the background. With every word, he stitched together the torn pieces of my heart, weaving a tapestry of laughter, dreams, and shared silences. He listened without judgment, his eyes reflecting empathy and a promise that whispered of possibilities. But life, with its penchant for irony, had more twists in store. I discovered Kai's secret one evening as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of betrayal. He was not just a wanderer with a kind heart. His connection to my sister ran deeper than I could have imagined. They were more than acquaintances. He had been her confidant once, a remnant of a past she never spoke of. The revelation shattered the fragile trust we had built. My heart, already scarred, felt the familiar sting of betrayal. Yet, this time, there was no retreat into despair. Instead, a new resolve took root. I confronted him, my voice steady despite the storm within. "Why didn't you tell me?" I demanded, my words both a question and an accusation. His response was unexpected. "Because I wanted you to see me for who I am now, not who I was." His eyes held mine, unwavering, a silent plea for understanding. "Your sister and I, we were never more than friends. But you are the one who makes me want to be better." Tears threatened to spill again, but this time, they were different. Not the tears of a wounded soul, but those of someone on the brink of understanding. His promise was not of unchanging perfection, but of growth, of becoming something more together. In that moment, I realized that independence didn't mean solitude. It meant choosing who to stand beside, who to trust with the delicate pieces of my heart. Kai was not perfect, but neither was I. We were both navigating the complexities of past and present, forging a path toward a future not defined by old betrayals, but by new promises. As we stood under the twilight sky, the stars above bore witness to a new beginning. A love born not from the ashes of betrayal, but from the courage to embrace vulnerability, to hold on to the promises we made, not just to each other, but to ourselves. And so, I chose to trust again, to step into the uncertain light of a new dawn, knowing that whatever storms lay ahead, I was no longer a passive victim of fate's cruel games. I was the author of my story, pen in hand, ready to write a chapter that spoke of resilience, of unexpected love, and the power of independence. In the end, it was not about finding someone better, but about becoming the person I wanted to be, strong, unyielding, and unafraid to love fiercely, even in the face of uncertainty. The river of time flowed on, and with it, so did I, carried by the gentle promise of tomorrow. I remember the day like a photograph, etched in the sepia tones of bittersweet nostalgia. The sky was an expanse of blue, a deceitful serenity that mocked the turmoil within me. I stood there at the edge of the crowd, watching the ceremony unfold with a heart as heavy as the storm clouds that threatened to gather. My sister, Hana, was radiant in her ivory gown, her smile a constellation that outshone the sun. Beside her stood Kaito, the man I once believed was my forever. As their vows echoed in the garden's embrace, a soft breeze whispered secrets of betrayal, cooling the tears that dared to trace paths down my cheeks. Memories collided within me, a kaleidoscope of laughter and whispered promises, now shattered like glass at my feet. 3 years of shared dreams, now fragmented, replaced by the hollow echo of what could have been. "Do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" The officiant's voice droned, a distant murmur in the cacophony of my mind. Kaito's answer was a blade, slicing through the fragile hope I'd foolishly nurtured. "I do," he said, sealing my fate with the finality of a drawn curtain. Yet, amidst the shattering of illusions, a flicker of resolve ignited within me, a spark of rebellion against the role of the forsaken. The reception was a blur of forced smiles and hollow congratulations. I floated through the crowd, feeling like a ghost haunting the edges of a life that was no longer mine. It was here that I saw him, Riku, a face I'd known only in passing, now illuminated by the soft glow of lanterns. His eyes, a deep ocean of understanding, met mine, and in that moment, I felt seen, truly seen, for the first time in what felt like an eternity. Riku approached me with a quiet confidence, his presence a balm to my wounded heart. "You shouldn't cry for those who don't see your worth," he murmured, his voice a gentle caress against the rawness of my pain. His words were unexpected, a lifeline thrown into the abyss of my despair. We talked, and as the night deepened, so did our conversation, weaving a tapestry of shared stories and dreams. I found solace in his laughter, a melody that chased away the shadows of betrayal. It was in his company that I realized I had been holding on to a love that had long since withered, clinging to a memory rather than the reality of what Kaito had become. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of self-discovery. Riku and I spent countless hours together, his presence a steady anchor in the tumultuous sea of my emotions. He taught me the art of letting go, of embracing the strength that lay dormant within me. With each passing day, the chains of the past loosened their grip, and I found myself reveling in the newfound freedom of independence. But life, I've learned, is a master of unexpected twists. It was on a crisp autumn evening, as the leaves danced their final waltz to the ground, that Kaito returned, appearing at my doorstep like a specter from a forgotten dream. His eyes, once a source of comfort, now held a desperation that mirrored the storm in my heart. "I made a mistake," he confessed, words tumbling like stones over the silence between us. "I chose security over love, and now I realize the depth of my error." "Hana, she isn't you!" His declaration sent ripples of incredulity through me, a tempest of emotions I'd thought long buried. Once, those words might have been my salvation, but now they were a cruel jest, a test of the boundaries I'd painstakingly rebuilt. I met his gaze with a calm I hadn't known I possessed. "We were different people then, Kaito," I replied, my voice steady, a testament to the strength I'd found. "I've learned to love myself in ways I never thought possible. I owe that to Riku and to the woman I've become." Kaito's eyes widened, a flicker of regret shadowing his features. "I'm sorry," he whispered, the sincerity in his voice a balm to the wounds he'd once inflicted. I nodded, accepting his apology not as a bridge to the past, but as a stepping stone to the future. Kaito departed, leaving behind the ghost of what once was, and I turned back to the warmth of my home, to the life I was crafting with Riku by my side. As seasons shifted and time wove its intricate tapestry, I found that the tears of yesterday had watered the seeds of today's happiness. Memories, once a source of pain, now served as reminders of the journey I'd undertaken. Promises, both broken and kept, had taught me the art of forgiveness, of others, and of myself. In Riku, I discovered not just a companion, but a partner in every sense of the word. He stood by me as I pursued my dreams, his belief in me a constant source of inspiration. Together, we built a love that was not born of desperation, but of mutual respect and understanding. And so, as I stand beneath the cherry blossoms, the petals a gentle rain of pink and white, I realized that the path I feared had led me to a destiny beyond my wildest imaginings. Independent, yet intertwined, I am no longer defined by the shadows of my past, but by the brilliance of a future I'd thought impossible. And in this newfound light, I see clearly, with a heart unburdened by regret. The rain fell like an old song outside my window, a melody of memories and tears that I had grown all too familiar with. It was ironic, I thought, how the world seemed to weep with me, a fitting backdrop to the tangled threads of my emotions. I sat there, cradling a steaming cup of tea, the warmth seeping into my hands, grounding me in this moment of reflection. 3 years. 3 years of laughter and shared dreams. 3 years of promises whispered under the silver glow of the moon. And then, like a cruel twist of fate, those promises were shattered like fragile glass, each shard lodging itself into my heart. I still remember that day. The day I discovered that the man I loved was marrying my sister. My sister, with her radiant smile and sunlit hair, was everything I wasn't. She was the embodiment of warmth, while I was the shadow that clung to the edges of the room. I should have seen it coming, the way his eyes lingered on her a moment too long, the way his laughter was louder, brighter when she was near. But love, in its blinding brilliance, often obscures the truth. Betrayal doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It creeps in quietly, a whisper of doubt before it becomes a scream of realization. I remember the moment vividly, the crinkled invitation that slipped from her purse, the ink still fresh with the promise of their union. My heart stopped, then shattered, the pieces falling away until I was left with a hollow echo of what once was. I confronted him, the words tumbling out like a dam finally breaking. "How could you?" I demanded, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. His eyes, usually so full of warmth, were cold and distant. "It just happened," he said, and I wondered how love could be reduced to something so casual, so unintentional. As the days passed, I realized that my tears were not just for him. but for the woman I had been, the girl who believed in forever, who trusted so blindly. That girl was gone, replaced by someone who understood the bitter taste of betrayal, who knew that love was not always enough. But life, in its cruelty, also has a way of offering second chances. It was during one of those endless nights when sleep was a distant memory that I met him. Kaito. His presence was like a balm to my wounded soul, a gentle reminder that even in the darkest of times, light could find a way in. Kaito was everything I never knew I needed. He was the quiet strength that held me together, the laughter that broke through my sorrow. With him, there were no promises made under the moon, no grand gestures, just a simple understanding that sometimes the most profound connections are forged in silence. But life, as I had learned, was never straightforward. My sister's wedding was a day of reckoning, a battle between my past and present. I watched them exchange vows, their words a haunting echo of what I had once dreamed of. Yet, as I stood there, I felt a strange sense of liberation. The chains of my past fell away, replaced by wings of newfound independence. And then, in a twist I hadn't anticipated, my sister approached me, tears shimmering in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice cracking like ice. "I never meant to hurt you." Her apology was unexpected, a salve to wounds I hadn't realized were still raw. In that moment, I understood the power of forgiveness, not just for her, but for myself. Holding on to anger was like clutching a thorn, each grip only causing more pain. As I let go, the tears that fell were no longer of sorrow, but of release. Kaito, by my side, squeezed my hand, a silent promise of a future untainted by the past. It was then I realized that love, true love, was not about possession or promises, but about freedom and the courage to let go. As I walked away from the ceremony, the rain had ceased, leaving behind a world washed clean. I stepped into the future, unburdened by the ghosts of what once was, ready to embrace the unexpected beauty of what could be. In the end, betrayal had given birth to a new beginning, and the tears that had once been a symbol of loss had transformed into a testament of my resilience. For in the tapestry of life, even the most painful threads can weave a story of unexpected grace.